And we are live. Welcome back, everybody. It's been a little while since we had our last episode, which was episode 24. Tonight we have episode 25. This is a major milestone. 25 episodes. Technically, it's 26. Okay, and it ties into one of our special guests tonight. We have my buddy Nate here. Nate and I, we did the actual first episode, which was our beta test. And that was on microclimates and power consumption or solar or something. And it was going to start out being something short for like 20 minutes, end up being a couple hours. And it was such a great experience that I ended up posting it once the channel was a few episodes in. So it's very great to have Nate back on the show. Miss him. He's up in Chicago now. But, you know, when he was here in Florida, we used to hang out and do radio and solar and all kinds of cool stuff. So it's great to see him back. We also have my man Derek in the house.
What's up?
And yeah, so these two guys are two of my Meshtastic buddies. I have some others, but we had a bunch of personal issues where a bunch of the panel couldn't make it tonight. But that's all right. Life happens. And we volunteer and do this for fun, so can't be hating on anybody. But so tonight we're kind of doing a little different kind of episode. We're going to talk about Meshtastic and Mesh Core versus the traditional amateur radio type bands like GMRS, UHF, VHF, HF, and kind of seeing what's the practicality of these things and what are the pros and the cons, the good, bad, and the ugly, and see how each piece fits into our PACE plan. That's your primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency for all those normies out there tuning in. This is going to be a really fun show. And so let's start off with, we'll have Derek, you start off and kind of give why you jumped into the Meshtastic space, what motivated you.
Yeah. Tell me to shut up if I run on too long, guys, because I am
no problem.
I am a little bit. Let's just throw it out the window, right? I am straight up a nerd. The tech is my jam. I'm in the field. That's just what I study. It's what I love to do. But really, what kind of brought me to Meshtastic was the decentralization of it and the encryption part of it. We really fundamentally lack, I think, a good software that can communicate with friends, loved ones, community, tribe, mag, whatever you have it, with good encryption capabilities. Yes, we have hundreds of different technology online like Element or Rocket Chat or KeyPass or Signal, Telegram, and they all tout, oh, it's end-to-end encrypted, it's peer-to-peer encrypted, no one can intercept communications, it's all good and dandy. But at the end of the day, it's on someone's servers. At the end of the day, you go into any data center and the DoD has a line right to someone's server rack. You know what I mean? They're looking at the data just like anybody else can. So for me, it was like, hey, this, in the event of how can we use this for disasters and when the grid is not online, even just from away from an SHTF scenario. We've had several instances here where power has been off 3, 4, 5 days, and it's just nice to be able to check in on neighbors without breaking their fence and going into their yard, knocking on their doors. So that's kind of what really drew me to it. That and the low cost, low input for the most part. I mean, you can get ridiculous with it, don't get me wrong, but the fact that I can stick a solar node up and I don't ever have to really touch it other than to update the firmware every now and again is a really big boon. So it kind of piqued my interest to start messing around with the tech.
Very cool. All right, Nate, what was your inspiration? What brought you into the space?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of similar things to say as Derek. The encryption is a big one. So obviously on all the ham frequencies, you're not able to use encryption. I'm sure in a lawless scenario, it'll be at the bottom of their priority list. But you have encryption, and is as far as being able to break it, I don't really think that I mean, unless the NSA zeroes in on you, like encryption by default, unless there's like a flaw in the algorithm, in the code, the actual encryption is like really secure. So unless somebody goes and like discovers some exploit in the Meshtastic code, the algorithms they're using are incredibly secure. And they're not on the internet. So even if you wanted to intercept it, I mean, you got to be local, you have to be intercepting it. It's not something you can do centrally, right? So if the government was interested in decrypting it, I mean, sure, go send a guy out to our neighborhood to like intercept traffic, good luck with that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the biggest thing is how easy it is to get started. Now I'm biased because I'm a tech guy, right? But things like running a repeater, right? I mean, that just seems so out of reach with other radio tech that I never even bothered to like try to do it, right? Mm-hmm. But hey, if you want to run a repeater, you just like buy or wire up your own repeater, and it's super easy to do. How low powered they are, like the amount of wattage they use is so small. It's so incredible. You can run a solar node, a repeater, you throw it up in a tree or whatever, and as Derek was saying, it's solar, and you don't have to touch it. You don't need a generator. It can run off of the sun, and even if there's not sunlight for weeks and weeks, it'll still run based on when it got sunlight the last time for a couple days. There's no other radio tech that can do that. And then the mesh part of it, so chaining together repeaters in order to get a longer distance. I mean, when you put all this together, your mind kind of runs wild of the possibilities. And can it be done without Meshtastic? I mean, yeah, if you're an engineer and you want to dedicate your entire life to trying to wire together stuff using ham, frequencies, maybe using CW, which is, I guess, digital. That's like Morse code. I mean, there's ways to do it, but, it's not my full-time job. And the fact that somebody came along and invented Meshtastic, I do have enough time to play around with it and to get started. And that I'm able to do.
Well, what's interesting to me, as an offshoot of the Meshtastic, it kind of helps build community in the sense that because you're having to use so many small devices, which now you can buy it off the shelf, you still got to have an understanding of it. And then there's a lot of tinkerers in the space, and you start deploying these out, you're motivated because like, oh, let me run a scan. Let me see what nodes I can see in this area. And you have the opportunity to make connections with people based on your interest that you normally wouldn't have. So even if you guys both have radios, unless you're really a ham guy, you're not playing on a radio. If you're looking to, I talked to this guy in Idaho, or I talked to this guy in St. Pete. So a lot of the people that it's not just being into amateur radio, or because there's a lot of the similar techs, using different frequencies and what have you, but it kind of forces you to know who's around you. And you see those nodes like, oh, I wonder who that is. And then maybe you send a message to that person. Hey, so-and-so, I'm into this space. You're in that space. Is there any other nodes that, you can get to that I don't know about and what have you? So I hope some people in the space kind of see that as an opportunity as well. And then, encryption seems to be the big driver for a lot of people and like a lot of technology. Okay. And in this space, people are worried about, I want to have encryption so people can't hear what I'm saying. Well, I think we over worry about the government worrying about what we're doing. We're not that interesting, I guess you could say, unless you're trying to kidnap a governor from a state or do some shenanigans. Government got bigger fish to fry than us. Just don't be saying all your nonsense on Facebook and nobody will pay attention to you. So you'll be fine there. But you don't even have to crack the encryption to defeat it in a sense, because if your buddy loses his device that's trusted on your channel, okay, or gives the key, then they can jump on. But then I guess you could delete the channel if you know. So just be mindful of that.
Very true. Very true.
All right, for all the normies out there or people like me that are, because I'm new to the Meshtastic thing, it's part of why I'm doing the episode and bringing these guys on and to kind of chat about it. I went and did a little bit of research, and like the guy said, what's one of the things that's popular about it is low power. Okay, the hardware is inexpensive, depending on what you do. You can buy the pieces and tinker. You can buy all-in-one devices. You can buy devices with GPS. All the coding is open source. So if you have any kind of programming skills or trying to think, is there like a chirp equivalent that'll help you? Because I know you got to flash the hardware when you get it. So why don't you guys touch base on that? So flashing devices, is it something that a chirp type software, which is also open source, does that help out? Nate, you want to start on that one, and Derek, you can jump on after that.
Yeah. So flashing is incredibly easy. So I don't know if you guys, I mean, we're older, so we've experienced tech in the days when it wasn't so easy, right? Flashing firmwares, back 10, 20 years ago. But you can flash the firmware in the browser now. I didn't even know browsers could do this, but yeah, apparently it's a thing. Browsers can hook right up to, COM ports, and you have to grant access. So there's a little button that says, hey, do you trust this? So you just go to a web page, you select the device that you have, like, I have this node, I have like a Heltec V4 is one of mine that I have. Press a couple buttons, it flashes the firmware. The Meshtastic community has made it like really easy to use. I mean, they've done such a good job with this, because with open source bootstrap projects, you're so used to it being just a kind of a pain in the ass, right? Just wasting tons of time sorting through weird errors, looking at community posts to figure out how somebody else solved the problem. Sorry, I'll get back to the chirp thing. I kind of went on with it.
Fine, yeah.
Yeah, but they made it so incredibly easy to use. And yeah, it's just very plug and play. And so when you look at chirp, right, chirp is for programming like frequencies into your radio and like settings and stuff like that. There are settings to put in your Meshtastic device. But there's kind of like no need for chirp, right? Because there's only a handful of settings. You have like the modem settings. So there's like kind of software configurations, which is like, the encryption keys and like what's your handle, right? And stuff like that. But then and that you can just set in the app, just an app. It's like the universal entryway into all Meshtastic nodes. Repeater, your own little pocket node, right? It's just one app that you use. I think there's a desktop client too, which I haven't used yet. But all those settings are super easy to just plug and play using the app. And then as far as the more complicated settings, that's where you get into the modem settings. And that's basically like the frequency that it's going to listen on, and some of the other parameters that's like fundamental to like how it communicates over the air. So those settings have to be in place in order to be compatible with another radio, right? It's like being on the same frequency, right? I think everybody, even if you're not a Meshtastic guy, even if you're not a radio person, you understand you got to be on the same frequency, right? And then just take it face value. There's a couple other settings too. Put those together. That's how you're at least on the same mesh network, right? And then the rest is just like, again, your handle and stuff like that. So there's really no need for chirp, and thank God, because Chirp is a bit of a janky project, to be honest.
Well, question for you. So when you say, so it seems like you control everything, whether it's from the flashing of the hardware or settings. Is it all done through an app on a phone, or is it PC based, or both?
The flashing is done through the browser. So you just you buy the device. A lot of times when you buy the devices, they won't have the firmware installed. That because there's two competing firmwares. There's Meshtastic and there's MeshCore, and they're both compatible with the same hardware, but you have to flash whichever firmware you want. Mm-hmm. Some of them come pre-installed with one or the other. Regardless, you're going to want to upgrade it at some time. I mean, just do a firmware upgrade. So, you have to learn how to do it. But yeah, you basically plug it into your computer using like USB, and then you go to, I think it's like flasher.meshtastic.org or something, and you just like click a couple buttons, and then your firmware is on there. And then all the settings, that's done through an app. So you just download the app, connect through Bluetooth, and the interface is really easy. And like I've got a repeater up on my roof. Well, it's actually not a repeater; it's called a client base. There's a little distinction. It's intended to repeat my messages.
Yeah.
So for all intents and purposes, you can kind of call it a repeater, unless you're a mesh nerd, in which case call it a client base. But yeah, I can connect to that through my phone. And the cool thing too is that like you can connect to your more distant nodes and administer it using the mesh network itself, right? So like, let's say I've got a pocket device, right? And I want to configure it, right? I want to change my handle, change the modem settings or whatever. I can connect through Bluetooth, right? We all understand that. Bluetooth, the range is like, hey, like don't go outside the house, right? Like that kind of range. My device on my roof is too far. It's outside of Bluetooth range, but I can connect to it using the radio mesh itself. And the interface is exactly the same, whether or not I'm configuring it through Bluetooth or configuring it through the mesh itself, which is like super cool.
I wonder if, say, you have a set of 3 nodes, they're all the same brand, same model, and what have you, and you wanted to add one, you put something new up on the roof, would you? It sounds like you're change settings from node 1 by your desk up to node number 4. Can you flash that way too? Like we'll send a command to the closest node and say, copy your RAM or your ROM, whatever they want to call it, and then flash that new device, or you literally got to flash them all by your computer before you deploy them, and then you can only change the settings. Is that making sense?
With Derek, yeah, because I'm pretty sure you can't flash remotely because I'm pretty sure you can correct me, Derek, but one of the limitations of Meshtastic is the amount of data throughput is so incredibly small. So when you think of flashing, right, you're basically uploading a program onto there, and the data throughput rate, depending on your modem settings, is like a kilobyte per second maximum, even lower. I think you can go a bit higher. I don't know. Is there a way to flash it remotely, or is that all?
Remotely, not through another node, but there is it's in the newer versions of the firmware. There is a remote. I don't know if it's gonna. No, probably not. My blur. There is an option to connect to it via Bluetooth and flash it from your phone. So you can enter the DFU mode right from the app and flash it right from the app, as long as you're connected to it via Bluetooth. But you can't, like administering the node, like you were saying, Nate, you can't hop from one node, I believe, to flash the firmware on another node. You can't hop through it like that.
Okay. To give some context for the people that are new to Meshtastic, especially for the radio guys. So normally when we use, say, a program like Chirp, we're literally connecting, our wire, okay, from a USB port, which is using the COM port virtually, okay, to send it to the phone where it connects with the Kenwood port. Is that the connector? It's called Kenwood.
One of the connector types.
Yeah, and it's such an old technology, right?
Yeah.
Where here, when you're flashing the stuff, you have to do something similar in a sense where you're connecting probably USB from the computer. Okay. And then what would you are you probably doing like a micro USB or something to the hardware itself?
USB-C. Yeah, it's all USB-C. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank God. I'm trying to never buy anything that's micro ever again.
Yeah.
I just will not buy anything with micro.
Yeah. What was that? What's that, Derek?
Unless you have one of these ancient things, the original T-beams, the before the Supremes, these were micros, and man, it's fun.
USB, yeah, well, USB-C is, I think, the best choice for two reasons. One, for charging the device. Two, for communicating the data. You don't have to have two separate ports. You don't have to worry about the little pin breaking on the micro versions of the different connectors.
Yep.
And let's see here.
I just want to reiterate or clear something up real quick about your previous question, real quick, Don.
Yeah.
I believe if your Meshtastic node has a built-in Wi-Fi card where it supports connecting to Wi-Fi networks, you can remotely from the internet or from an IP address flash the firmware that way without the Bluetooth.
Now, how would it would it need like a MAC address? Everything electronic has a MAC address, I'm guessing. So how would you know how to connect it? It'd have to be powered on some way.
How to connect the node to Wi-Fi, you mean? Or
yeah, so if we're trying to remote flash it, for example.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Nate would probably be a little bit better at this, but I can tell you that once you connect through the app, once you connect the mesh node to the Wi-Fi network, you get an IP address, and it runs a web server, just like any computer, right? Runs a web server, runs right on port 80. You can connect to it via the IP, put your username and password in, and manage it that way.
So it sounds like that's probably good for updating.
Yeah,
but not the initial firmware flash.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So initially you can do it through the. And again, that's one of the things that has made Meshtastic so popular, right? Is it's for this generation. It's all done pretty much. Mostly all done on the phone, right? No one wants to do it any other way. So once you get it connected to your app, you can, on the newer versions of Meshtastic and the newer version of the app, flash it that way. But initially,
that's really good because it's like they're doing really good and in a quick amount of time too, reducing the friction. Yeah. From starting, from having the device and getting it online. Dropping and reducing barriers to entry, just to make it easier.
That's a big one.
I think the way to classify it, because what you were saying, Dom, that like it's there's not a lot of barriers. It is like a tinker device, but like it's not that bad, is what I would say. They've made it so user friendly that even if you're not a tech wizard, like as long as you know some tech, like when we talk about like plugging in a USB, right? Yeah. I mean, I think most people would be able to pick it up, even if you're not like a super nerdy person. So it's pretty low on the tinker scale. You could go as crazy as you want, right? Like I'm sure Derek has tinkered way more than I have, and I'm getting there over time. But yeah, like if the concept of like connect to a device through Bluetooth, upgrade software. I mean, if these don't seem like crazy concepts to you, I think that you're able to get started with it, and it's super fun because nodes pop up in your area. Mm-hmm. There's this bridge to like connect through the internet to pick up other nodes like elsewhere. It's kind of like ruining the whole thing. Yeah. I mean, it's like if you're into ham radio and you have like you connected to the internet in order to talk to people in the other side of the world, like defeats the entire like It's not cool anymore, right?
Yeah.
But just never enable that setting. And it's super fun. But you have to be willing to tinker a bit. We'd all be lying if we said otherwise. It's a little more tinkering than like getting started with GMRS. We can probably get into that because like GMRS, you buy 2 radios, you plug in 2 numbers or two frequencies or 2 channels. You press the talk button and it works, right?
Yeah.
It's a little more, you have to practice with Meshtastic to know how it works beforehand.
Yeah. Well, I was watching some videos and was it the guy? He's one of the popular ham radio guys. Ham Radio 2.0 or something. Guy's got a beard. I'm sure we all have seen him. It was either him or somebody else. So basically, they were saying, well, how do we find people? And you try to turn them on from your house, and you only can see so much. He says, well, you know what? Just leave one on a default setting, and drive around your neighborhood or in the city, and you're scanning, and then you'll see where they're at. So that made me think, well, yeah, why don't you get a couple of them? Have one set for default, have one with other different settings, because you could, or channels, if I'm saying it correctly, to scan for different things, and just go start driving around your neighborhood. And because for all you know, there might be something inhibiting you from seeing the other node in your neighborhood. But if you drive by and you know they're there, you might be able to make contact with that person and like, hey, you make this adjustment or I'll make that adjustment, and we'll be able to get on board. Now, in that line of thinking, is there the similar barriers that we have in amateur radio present with Meshtastic? So if I'm here and say Derek lived down the street from me, and how hard is it for Derek to see me? I mean, what's kind of a distance are we talking? Does the signal on that frequency get inhibited the same way as my GMRS radio? So if I take one of my Meshtastic nodes, have one here, and I put it at Derek's house, and we each take a GMRS radio, are they equally going to be able to reach each other? Or are they going to have different reactions to what's between there's trees and houses and what have you?
Yeah, I could take this. It's similar. So like the frequency, Derek, are the GMRS frequencies VHF or UHF?
I think they're UHF.
UHF, right?
Yeah, UHF.
Is it UHF? I thought UHF was in the 150, 100 frequency range. Either one of those. Dom, you're probably right.
I'm gonna double check it.
I thought it was VHF.
Yeah. Well, so they're all similar because it's all line of sight, right? So when you look at radio propagation, there's a lot of nuance depending on the type of barriers that you have. But when you're in the higher frequencies, basically the radio waves will travel in a straight line and diminish greatly when they encounter structures, buildings, especially metal, especially water. So like if you have trees and it rained, it's no good. As far as like, is it better than GMRS? I don't have the answer to that. I bet you that Derek will, because I have theoretical reasons to go one way or the other. And this is why testing is so important, right? Because on the one hand, Meshtastic is lower wattage, right? And that's by law, because when you're in this frequency, it's basically like, so the government came up with this small, range of frequencies, and it's like a free for all, right? They're just like, have at it, small, Internet of Things or whatever you want, just make sure that your wattage doesn't exceed some amount, so that it's kind of local. And you could do whatever you want. And so this was exploited for Meshtastic. It's kind of genius. No licensing needed. But Meshtastic is much lower wattage. So you would think that means that it wouldn't go as far. But there's 2 other things working to its advantage. One is that the amount of wattage that it does output is constrained to a much smaller bandwidth. So it's more powerful in the more narrow range that it is outputting, right? And so, for instance, when you look at Morse code, right, when people use Morse code modes, you could usually do it on a very low wattage because you're only emitting on such a small band that it actually turns out to be pretty powerful. So that's how Meshtastic works. And then the other thing is the way the Meshtastic radio modem, so it's called LoRa, it stands for long range. The way it works is it's meant to be very slow and very, very careful at listening. So because of that, you can transmit, just imagining that you're transmitting like a couple letters or a couple words at a time, right? And the receiver is so sensitive that it's able to pick up very faint signals. So let's say that you have like a GMRS radio and you're talking and there's a lot of obstructions and your friend can like kind of hear you, like they can make out some noise, and in that noise they can decipher that there might be a human voice, right? Meshtastic has the amazing ability that if you can make out the faintest noise, it can decode it, right? So in a way, the GMRS would completely fail, right? The most faint noise, it can decode it successfully. But this is all theoretical. I have yet to go like take my Meshtastic device and take my Baofeng and like go do a range test and put them side by side. But I'm almost certain that it works like that. I did do one test where I went about a mile away and I was able to do direct Meshtastic communication a mile out. I've done a handful of tests with my Baofeng. I don't think I've ever gone that far with my Baofeng. So there's my one test. I'm sure Derek has done far more testing in this range than I have, and can confirm.
Well, to give some. So I did look it up, and it is UHF for GMRS radio. And I also looked up the frequency range for Meshtastic, and it's in the 902 to 928 megahertz. And it said the common center frequency being 915 megahertz. Now, one thing I was watching from a video, God, what was the guy in Germany? It's not like, if I understand correctly, like GMRS radio, it's the same frequencies everywhere, okay? And it's just you're far enough away, you don't impact each other. Where it seemed like in Germany, for example, theirs is like 800 and something. So I'm wondering if this range here is across the U.S. and it works similar to GMRS, where as long as you're far enough away from the range, from the other users, it won't impact you. You guys think that's the case?
Yeah. Do you mean that there won't be interference?
Right. So if, like, Derek lives quite a distance from me, okay? So we can get on the same frequency on GMRS. I'm not going to hear him. He's not going to hear me. And then we're not going to cause interference with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So I'm thinking it's going to be something similar with Meshtastics. So unless there's a node in range.
And that's what kind of, to talk to what Nate was saying with the decoding, is it's so good at knowing, okay, he's broadcasting on this frequency range, but this signal is for a different channel. It's encrypted. The node can carry it, but won't be able to decipher and decrypt it for a channel if you don't have that key, right?
Yep.
Other than jamming, I've found that it's not like running around with a 50-watt mobile station just blasting GMRS, everywhere. And yeah, anybody that's on that channel is just cooked if they're not on, if they don't have equally as powerful or more powerful of a wattage, right? It's so quiet on the spectrum of things. You don't really have that. In fact, it's better. It's better to have way more nodes than too few, right? So that you can have these self-healing properties of it, and also have it actually be able to bounce. Now, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but I know in super congested areas where there's just hundreds and hundreds of nodes close by, things can get a little bit weird if you're all on default settings and you're trying to use, for example, the default channel. You do start to run into issues with hops. The data hopping between nodes. You do kind of run into some problems with that, but
well, I think the default is what, 5 hops. 7 is the cap.
I want to
for regular Meshtastic.
I think it was 3. I could be very wrong. I think it was 3.
And what I'm saying here, okay, remember, I'm not a Meshtastic guy. I'm just running off my notes. I've heard different guys on YouTube talking, and I was just piecing things together. So what I'm saying is doesn't have to be 100% accurate. I'm just throwing that out there at you guys. In some senses, it makes sense, because of the low power and what have you. Because any signal or data you send, if it's not boosted, it's going to fade. Just like when we're in IT, we're sending packets out, you can only, there are limits to, RJ45 cable. Okay. And after a certain length, you gotta, boost or, replicate the signal. Now, another thing that made me think of IT, because they're using for, a reference like the hops, because that's what we use in IT, is their data. I'm trying to remember the actual vernacular. So basically in IT, when you're sending data, depending on the topology you're using, it'll send the data and it needs verification that it made it, and it builds stuff into the packet to verify the data is not corrupt and what have you.
Checks on.
Is Meshtastic at that point yet where they have anything like the IT stuff with making sure the data is, right? I think it's in the header. Remember my network stuff?
I think it does have an acknowledgement frame in the data, but I don't know that it does any validation of the data.
It does have it does do that, like how TCP/IP packets do. It has a checksum that validates if it's corrupt or not. It has the acknowledgement, so it'll like send you back like, hey, I got this, which it won't get back to you half the time.
Yeah. Well, I also saw something where it seems like there's one mode where it's broadcasting, so any node in the area can hear it, and then there's another mode where you're sending it to a specific node. Now, I didn't dig deeper what that meant. Does it just make it? So I don't even know how it knows. I mean, unless it has some kind of identification to get there. And since it's not like TCP/IP, it's not this real robust topology. I don't know how that low tech is able to even do any of that stuff.
Yeah. So this is one of the main limitations of Meshtastic. It doesn't have smart routing. So the way it works is like, let's say that I'm here in my part of the city, and I send a message to somebody that's, let's say, in Northwest Indiana, right? And there's nodes everywhere. There's nodes here, north, south, east, and west. And when my message is created, it's encrypted, so gibberish is sent over the wire, right? Mm-hmm. And only the recipient has the decoding key, right? So routers can forward it, but they can't read it. It's all encryption magic. I can rant all day about encryption. But the way it works is totally different from TCP/IP, because the way TCP/IP works is you discover the most optimal route to get to the destination dynamically and intelligently, right? You don't just broadcast to the entire internet until it gets to the right person. With Meshtastic, I send that message, and even though my recipient is southeast of me, the nodes northwest of me will get it, and they'll broadcast it further northwest and further northwest because they don't know where the recipient is, right? And so theoretically, you could solve this with like discovering an optimal route so that the nodes in the wrong direction could be like, hey, like, I don't need to rebroadcast this. I'm the wrong guy for this. I don't think that they've done that. And I wonder if MeshCore has, because I haven't looked into MeshCore. All I know is that people rant and rave about it.
They have.
But
MeshCore
I know
does.
absolutely nothing about MeshCore, and Derek, you probably do.
Yeah.
So have they managed to solve some of this stuff?
They did. They have. And it's funny because it is actually built into Meshtastic. Like Meshtastic could easily, because it's all based off of the same source code. Guys that did MeshCore literally copy pasted that that Git repository, if you will, and they just did a couple of cool things. But yeah, absolutely. Within the MeshCore app, you can actually tell what right from the app where you want those hops to go and what way to go about it. It's actually pretty nifty. I do wish more people had used it, but it's not so different that it's like we can go into this discussion. I'm sure I don't want to break anyone's heart on this, but MeshCore is nice just because it is more of that old school repeater client, whereas Meshtastic more focuses on just the clients doing exactly what you said, Nate, just blasting it like an old hub switch, just blasting it everywhere, and hopefully you get it. MeshCore kind of does focus a little bit more on the direct routing, if you will, of where your data is going, and then focuses more on repeaters. Not to say that there aren't repeaters in Meshtastic, it's just not something that a lot of people use. You'll find I've maybe come across one or two in maybe Tampa, and I've never seen another true repeater again, right? Just by pure nature of it. But it is pretty nifty. If you do get some time, Nate, I'd flash one of your nodes just to play around with it. It's like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. Why don't they add this to Meshtastic?
Well, it sounds like with MeshCore that there's some kind of rudimentary routing table that kind of maps out where nodes that they've made connections with, and those nodes have unique identifiers. I mean, other than that, I don't know how they would sit there and know where to send it and not to send it, or where its final destination. So if a node wants to determine, do I need to push this forward? I need to be able to read the header and see what the see what I'm saying?
And the headers are always unencrypted. Because you kind of need that information. But that's the same in TCP/IP. Also, headers are unencrypted for that reason.
I wonder people that are in Meshtastic and MeshCore will be turned off by that because, like, oh, I don't want anybody to know. It's kind of like a contradiction. You get into all this radio stuff and you want to be able to connect to people, but then you don't want nobody to know who you are or where you are, in a sense.
Yeah, I think it would be the same. Yeah, I can't think of any difference between that with Meshtastic and MeshCore. I mean, in both cases, you probably have an identifier, and you can. I wonder if you can figure out where somebody roughly is too with Meshtastic.
Well, I was about to say, can you do a fox hunt?
Yeah,
with Meshtastic.
I mean, you can choose to broadcast your location too. One of the downsides, so what I was saying a long time ago, is the bandwidth is so low on Meshtastic because the way the LoRa modem works is it's, like the analogy would be like if somebody was on the other end of the room and you were trying to talk to them. If you were to talk, it wouldn't work. But if you go like, A, right, and you just like scream letter by letter, right, very slow, but accurate, right? So it's kind of like the same thing. But because of that, there's not a lot of data can get through, and then it's compounded by the broadcast problem. So what Derek was saying, it's like it's like a hub instead of a router, where like everybody is getting flooded, and then it's that exponentially because the other nodes in turn are flooding, and those nodes in turn flood again, and so there's this like multiplication effect. And because of that, the network gets bogged down because everyone is spending all their modem time because it takes time to send a message. I think I ran the numbers once, but like, let's say somebody sends a message through and you are acting as a repeater, which by default, all nodes are kind of repeaters, even if you're not configured as a repeater. You do like relay the messages, and it takes time. It takes like, I think on some settings I looked at, it's like a half a second to relay a message of a certain size, but that's a lot of time, right? So that means that you can handle 2 messages per second, right?
Yeah.
And so if the network is demanding 4 messages per second, then the network is overloaded and nobody can talk, right?
Well, I was watching one video, and one of the guys mentioned that if you had like 30 users in an urban area, it's too much, and everything gets bogged down. And I guess that was one of the motivations for a lot of these former Meshtastic guys to jump to Mesh Core, because it seemed to be done differently enough that alleviates some of those congestion issues. That's just based on me listening to what guys were saying. I mean, Derek, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Part of the reason is no one's on Mesh Core. I flashed my repeater, if you will, and nothing. Pablo did as well down by him. There's a huge Meshtastic group, if you will, usage down south, and actually to the west of me, which is crazy. But and like I was saying with Mesh Core, one of the more unique features is right in the app itself. Let's see if I turned it off. I did. You have this set path where you can actually specify in this box here, I want it to go to repeater 1, then to repeater 2, then to repeater 3 in that order, and that's where my message will get to, instead of that overall boom, right? The problem is the Meshtastic does let you do that. It's just because they don't emphasize the repeater client infrastructure too much. Like Nate was saying, you do get that you do get that blast where everything is just a client. Everything's just going to do what it's programmed to do. What I don't know though, if, because I haven't experienced it myself, I've heard of the channel utilization getting overloaded on the default channel, the channel that comes on all the Meshtastic devices, the open channel, if you will. I don't know though if your encrypted channel that isn't shared with everyone also experiences the same hiccup, even if the nodes are being slammed, if you will. Because I do notice, or at least I have noticed, at least on the newer versions, there is a channel utilization now on all of the on all the devices. So I wonder if it's now able to, hey, this channel is overloaded, and it's going to stay overloaded, but this channel is not. It uses maybe different resources on the system or on the node. I'm not sure, but yeah. Hope I answered your question. I don't know. I just kind of went on a
It sounds like the newer nodes might have it built into where what they call it in there was load balancers.
Yeah.
Using the IT thing.
Okay,
you're taking the traffic in and you rotate 2 here, 2 here, 2 here.
Yep.
Keep everything and then you can fail over if there's too much congestion or what have you. So now when I was taking notes, watching the videos and everything, there seemed to be like 3 different types of devices per se. You have your traditional node, okay? and you need your cell phone basically to Bluetooth to that node to utilize it. And then the next set are the all-in-ones. They kind of look like a round oval BlackBerry looking.
BlackBerry.
Yeah. At first, because other videos like, man, people still have. Is there enough BlackBerries that don't get used floating around? People are repurposing them. It's just like the tech prepper was always repurposing tough books.
Yeah.
The tough laptops from police and military. So, but I guess these are actually manufactured for like $100 or something.
Yeah.
These BlackBerry looking devices. And then I
think
guess
they're the LilyGo T-Decks. The T-Decks.
What was that?
Yeah, I think they're the LilyGo T-Decks.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Yep. Yeah. And then there seems to be a third type of device, which is, I guess, the Meshtastic repeater, whatever sense. So, you guys want to chime in on any of those three and what you've used and what you see as the differences? Like, is it better to use an all-in-one, lily pad, whatever, and a lily deck, or is it better to use your iPhone or your Android and just Bluetooth to a node? I'm sure there's cost differences. Mm-hmm. Who wants to carry a dedicated device? I just want to carry one thing. Yeah. So then you could use the node one. But what do you guys? Nate, why don't you start?
Yeah. So I heard that the all-in-one, so the LilyGo T-Deck, I heard it's very clunky. So yeah, because I kind of thought about this. I'm imagining, like if there's a grid down kind of scenario and I need to use these, do I want the liability of needing a phone up and charged? And I did some looking, and the most important thing to me was, is the phone going to die way before the node in my pocket dies, right? Because if the whole point is to use it in a grid down scenario, I don't want my phone just dying, and then I have this mesh node that I can't even use because it doesn't have a keyboard on it. And then I'm going to be wishing I bought the clunky T-Deck, that has the BlackBerry one. But if you take your phone and if you put it in airplane mode, there's some other settings too. So you put it in airplane mode, and there's like some ultra power saving mode. Mm-hmm. And when you're not using it, because you're not going to be using it constantly, you just want it like it's usually going to be on standby, waiting to receive a message. Maybe you engage in a texting session for a while, but that phone can last for days.
Yeah.
Just as long as the Meshtastic node itself. So, when I ran those numbers, I was like, okay, I think it's okay to rely on my phone, and then have backups too. So I have like a backup iPad that's in my go bag. And I haven't done it yet, but I plan to, get the Meshtastic software running and get it hooked up to it. So, have a couple devices if you can that are set up and configured. Yeah. But yeah, I would rather rely on my phone because I don't care what's happening in the world. I'm gonna make sure my phone's on me.
Yeah. Well, it brings up a great point because power conservation is going to be important on a phone. So one of the biggest power consumers on a phone is your email polling and downloading stuff. So going to airplane mode will turn a lot of that off. But I'd probably sit there and delete every flipping app that is not, when you're in the grid down, just delete pretty much any. And when I say grid down, I'm talking about, okay, power is out for a week or something like that. Don't go deleting your Apple wallet. Okay. But just delete all the nonsensical, apps out there, and or go into the settings and just make it so they're not, because all those apps are always going to be looking at your location. They're always going to try to call home, call home.
Yeah.
They want to check in with the NSA,
Yeah, you can turn off GPS. yeah, there's like a whole list of settings I went through and like forgot, which is also a problem. This stuff needs to be written down. I actually planned that like once I get organized and like have a communication plan down, because right now I'm in the tinkering phase, and then ultimately I want to like train other people in my family on like how to use it. So at a moment's notice, like, hey, here's the mesh node. I'm going out, you know the drill, this is how we communicate. And yeah, you kind of have to train like ahead of time. But as part of that, I need to teach, have instructions for like, how do you power down your phone? Like put it in airplane mode and all these other things you said, Dominic.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do that, your phone's just going to die, and then you're going to have to worry about charging it. I mean, part of the whole selling point of Meshtastic is like how long the nodes last, because it's so low power consumption. And yeah, you don't want to just like ruin that whole selling point because your phone is constantly trying to talk to the cell tower that doesn't exist anymore.
Well, I think it's helpful if people are tinkering in technology where power consumption, and conservation is important. So just using a solar reference, people could say, oh, what good is a hot plate going to be, in a grid down? It uses 15 or 1800 watts for an hour. How long does it take to boil water? I like to go watt minutes. How many minutes does it take to fry a couple of eggs? Okay, so don't base that you can't, use your hot plate because you think you're going to draw out 1800 watts for an hour when you're only cooking for 5 minutes. You apply that same thing to any of your little devices, your phones and what have you, turn everything off, like you said, and then kind of gauge your consumption. Now, I don't know how, if you want to go into field testing, you go play with your phone now, or, a lot of us have an old Android, or or an old iPhone sitting around where the battery dies in 5 hours, but it'll stay, working without being plugged in for long enough for you to sit there and gauge how much power consumption can I reduce this phone to. Now, I don't know what apps are available online or what's built into Apple or the Android phones where it measures what everything is consuming. Like it would measure how much data you're using and how much storage you're using. Well, I wonder if they have something built in that will measure your power consumption to help you sit there, and because that was a good reasoning for you. It's like, well, my phone will die before my node. And then you sat there and did some troubleshooting and said, oh, I can make this last.
I think Android does have like battery stats and tells you like which apps are using the most battery. Yeah, you can disable apps from running in the background. There's all sorts of stuff you can do. Yeah. But this goes back to tinkering, right? Like, these are all experiments that have to be done, right? Like, how do you get your phone into a power saving mode? Because if you don't have internet and you're just giving your phone, you're like, hey, I need this to last 4 days. Like, are you just going to like automatically know how to do it? Probably not. So, these are things to practice ahead of time.
Absolutely. All right, Derek, what are your thoughts on the question?
That's a great question. And the cool thing about this whole Meshtastic thing and the tinkering is it's constantly being improved on. We've come a long way from the old T-beam days. And so, on that note, I thought those the T-decks were awesome. I was going to get one, BlackBerry days, let's go back to it, right? But it's big, it's clunky, like Nate was saying. It really is. What about the best of both worlds, though? Introducing the, no, I'm just kidding. This is I don't know if it's new, but this is the ThinkNode M1. And I don't know if you guys have ever used the Kindle, what do they call it? Oh boy. Anyway, it's the Kindle with the e-ink screen. It's just the black and white screen. It looks like paper, like you're reading an actual book. You guys know those batteries last forever. The screen is very special for that, right? This is the same thing. Utilizes that same technology, the e-ink screen. Okay. So while it's off, you still see Yes, exactly. They last forever. These things will last 4 or 5 days as long as your GPS is off. The cool thing about this particular unit, though, is you can also send messages with it if your phone is down. So it is also an all-in-one, which I thought was awesome. So if your phone dies or cracks or whatever happens, the node will also, from the node itself, you can still send messages. Is it not less intuitive than like the T deck would be with a full-sized keyboard? Yeah, you're not going to be teenage daughter texting. It's not rapid fire text messages, but it will do the job. But the tech is improving constantly. These new boards are coming out. They're way more power efficient than even they were, and they were already power efficient to begin with. But something like this, a small 10-watt little solar panel that you would carry with you, right? Either those battery banks or just a little portable 10-watt will power this bad boy no problem, get you back up and running. And that's in all of my gear. I keep those panels on in basically everything. I'm sure it's in many people's kits to have those those little battery banks. Those are great little resources to have to keep you going. But yeah, man. I mean, there's something to be said about these little devices and their GPS units as far as being able to keep track of family, running ATAC if you're into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Thing.
I wanted to segue to that, but I wanted to ask you this question first. I saw somewhere they said the message tap was like 200 characters. Is that still? Is that current?
Accurate. That's accurate, right?
200 characters. Is that the cap currently?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
And you don't really want to get that far. So part of what Nate was saying about his like pace plan, his comm plan. That's it. With any type of communication, that's an incredibly important thing. There should be no reason why I'm sending paragraphs over Meshtastic.
Right.
That goes with a paragraph over radio. That goes with a paragraph over HF. If I can break it down to as little characters as possible to absolutely make sure the data is getting there and uncorrupted and quick, I should. So that needs to be in your MCOM plan or your pace plan or combo.
Yeah. Having a message book, codes, or abbreviation. It doesn't always, when you're using code words, it doesn't have to mean you're trying to keep things secret. It could be you're just trying to keep it short and concise.
Absolutely.
And you're trying to make sure people are not, vernacular can make the difference for everything.
Sure
and
can.
Some people are long-winded and it's just, you want the meat and potatoes, the facts, boom. So if you have a predefined set of reference points or words, boom. And then the 200 character limit is not that big of a deal. So
exactly.
All right, so let's segue into GPS because I thought this was pretty interesting because I'm like, wow, that's probably jumped the price point to have GPS installed, and then I wonder and then the power consumption from GPS, and it's like, how are you making that tech work and being updated? Because you get a Garmin device, that's like $300-400, and it's basically a GPS node. So, why don't you guys jump in on that? Yeah. How GPS impacts this stuff?
Now, you want to go? You want me to go?
Yeah, you can go, Derek.
All right. So GPS, man, will take your 4 to 5 day node and cut it to 24 hours if it's constantly on, especially if you're using it a lot. Cost prohibitive? Not really. I mean, not anymore. Not like it used to be. In Garmin's case, I think you're paying for the name and the maps, right? But the nice proprietary little unit that you got, and most of them are built pretty well. But with these little guys, man, it's no different than putting a little like Wi-Fi card into a laptop. It's just this little teeny little unit with a little teeny antennas, just like on a laptop, and boom, it connects right up to your system. But it's really cool because I've been able to, while we're out, rucking in the woods by me, my wife can literally from our repeater, if you will, our node here, can literally get pings of where I'm at. I've gotten probably around 2.5 miles out, and I've been able to hit this thing. And send grid coordinates that she can pull up on the map and see where I'm at exactly. That's really cool from a shoot, you name it, from a camping standpoint, from a rucking standpoint, from a wilderness survival standpoint, but also from a coordination standpoint. I don't want to derail the conversation too much, but to kind of, with the GPS, to kind of segue back to the whole encryption thing and the whole government thing and stuff like that. Here, so much we don't have to worry about that. Praise the Most High. But you get countries like the UK where you post anything anywhere and they find it, you are going to jail. There's a huge case study where they've been able to use Meshtastic to create these sub-communities of people who are able to share news. A lot of the times the government there will block news stories from ever even leaving, and they don't know what's going on in their community, and if you say anything, you go to jail. Meshtastic has been kind of the forefront with that type of encryption to be able to communicate what's going on in their neighborhoods. They have a huge Meshtastic usage over there, huge communities, probably more so than us, I would even say, but also to organize their protests. Same thing with like Iran and stuff like that. They've been able to use these Meshtastic devices to organize their members, both location-wise, but also with the encrypted communications itself, being able to chat back and forth, which is pretty interesting from a use case scenario. You know, we may not agree with what's going on with the politics. It doesn't matter. The tech is what's fascinating, to see it being used like that, to see its limitations, to see where it can improve, to see how it's improved. But to go back to your original the question, Dom, as far as cost prohibitive, not really, not anymore. Yeah,
it's like $15 for the GPS.
Yeah, no,
usually
really.
to add on the GPS feature, it's like $15.
All right, so 2 questions for you guys. One would be for the audience that doesn't understand how the GPS works. Is it like pinging a satellite? Is it like pre-programmed to know where the satellites are or to seek them out? And is as a set rotation of pinging out so to get where it's at, and then it's able to transmit that stuff to the other nodes or your phone, but also, God, was it? Where have you seen it being used? I know ATAC was mentioned in a lot of videos. Okay, for all the cosplaying airsoft guys and stuff. One thing I didn't realize, whoever makes the ATAC create a civilian version that you could download. I didn't know that either. So, so what other apps can we use? Use it for our Google Maps or what have you. So, how's the GPS technology work, and what other applications we would have on our phone that we'll be able to utilize it in a practical manner?
Yeah. So the way to think about the way the GPS works is, so GPS is a receive-only chip, right? So you got all these, a constellation of satellites all around the world, and you can have a GPS receiver, very cheap, very small, size of a dime, and it's able to figure out the coordinates that you're currently at. As far as how that works, it's on my to-do list of rabbit holes to go down to figure out exactly how GPS works.
Well, I was thinking that if it's a receive-only node, or chip to put in there, then the GPS satellites must be broadcasting.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so the GPS satellites are broadcasting, and so with this little chip, it's able to pick up the signals from, I think the way it works, it's maybe like triangulation, right? So you have like different satellites, and you can back out enough information to figure out your coordinates, something like that. But yeah, it's a one-way transmission from the satellites to the GPS receivers, And then your Meshtastic node, all it does is, now that it knows your coordinates, it sends out a broadcast message periodically at a configurable interval, right? So the default is, I think, 3 hours, but you can have it be 5 minutes, right? Like if somebody is on the move and you're only interested in tracking their location, not only interested, if you're very interested in tracking their location, you want to set that broadcast interval to like 5 minutes or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you can configure it to broadcast your GPS location, right? So the pack is just like, hey, here's my node identifier, here's my location, here's my temperature. If you got a temperature sensor, there's like a couple weird things in there, right? But yeah, that's all that's happening. It's like the least magical thing ever. And then you on the receiving side, you get this packet saying this node identifier, and here's their handle, and here's their GPS location. Now on your app, they just update you on the map, right? With whatever the GPS coordinates were. But again, this is where the tinkering comes in, because if you just buy a node with GPS, the default is it's going to update every like couple hours, right? So you have to configure it, to work, and you also really have to understand the terrain that you're in. Like, is it flat? Are there any hills that you're on that you could take advantage of, right? You have to look at the topology of your location. There's just a lot going on. But yeah, you can also buy these like little dedicated trackers too, if you're only interested in location. Let's say that you just want to track someone's location and you want as little setup work as possible. You can buy these little trackers. It's a full Meshtastic node, but it's just pre-configured to do it efficiently, to just broadcast its location. So you can just like give it to somebody. Here, throw it in your bag. No need to connect it to their phone or anything like that. Just give it to them, and then you can track them as long as you can get packets back and forth.
It's like an AirTag almost.
It's like an AirTag, yeah.
Yeah, I try to, make these analogies for the audience, because I'm assuming there's a lot of people on here that are not into Meshtastic, and I want to encourage them by giving them some comfort level. Oh, okay, I understand that. If I can understand the AirTag, I can understand this. Been trying to make a lot of those examples tonight, so they don't get all, technology fatigue, and they're like, oh, I can't do it. But I want to segue into something that was interesting, because I know, Nate, you and I had talked about drones many times, okay? And we're chatting about, hey, what if you put a, Meshtastic node on a drone? So, and I've thought about that before with, okay, can you use a drone and run a wire up from your radio? And how long can the wire be before it's too much of a problem? I mean, obviously there's weight considerations of the wire. Will it be able to pull? I mean, how wires light to us, okay? But 1 foot of wire versus 10 feet of wire, that's exponential compared to a DJI drone that weighs 50 grams. So, when you had brought up about, connecting a node, I'm like, oh, okay, that'd be cool. And then I'm like, what's the range on the Bluetooth? And then I'm like, oh man, well, what if we sat there and you loaded up the node with messages? I don't know how many messages you could queue up on it, and have you and Derek have a set time. Okay, at 10:05 p.m., send your drone up to 75 feet, okay? Mm-hmm. And they'll automatically be pinging, and when they get to the same height, line of sight, as long as the distance, the higher your antenna, the farther away a node can be in, line of sight radio world. So that's the thinking I'm thinking there. And I'm like, if the messages are queued up on this node and there's messages queued up on this node, well, how many can you queue up? Will they crash into each other? And that same space that you're storing to send messages, is that the same storage you'd be able to receive messages? So can you only do half? You get the gist of what I'm going at?
Yeah.
I could nerd out so bad right now. It's not even funny. I'm holding back. I'm holding back.
Yeah,
I'm holding back.
Yeah, I think Derek and I have got probably so much to say on this. Yeah. So, oh man. Yeah.
Well, you guys can let loose a little bit because I think this is the last major topic for tonight. So we're only at an hour and 15, so we got some room.
Cool.
So
Nate, you're more than welcome to go first, brother.
All right. So you don't have to pre-queue your messages. So if you remember back to how the way Meshtastic works, the way it works is you've got your phone, and then in your pocket is your pocket node, right? And then you launch your drone up, and your drone has the repeating node. And so you're not talking to it. You're not talking to.
Oh, it's not Bluetooth.
The drone, right,
Not directly.
Not through Bluetooth, because the drone would be 400 feet up in the air. So it's node to node. So you're using the Meshtastic hop framework in order to do this. I'm going
to draw this out.
Yeah, and as far as will messages clash, theoretically, yes. In practice, no, because it's just a couple people messaging. So again, like the modem, it takes some fraction of a second to send a message. And so if you're sending and receiving at the same time, there's some optimization too that I was reading about where, like, if it's in the middle of receiving a message, like it's not going to send, you're probably not going to have clashes. I wouldn't worry about that. So yeah, the way it would work, and I actually have the drone, and I plan to test this, but I'm going to wait until the spring, probably until March. There's two ways to do it. One is where one person launches up the drone, and then they will be the catalyst that will connect, like, whoever is in range. They'll be like the central repeater. And so you can have somebody some number of miles away, all of a sudden you can text them. There's a lot of problems with that. So I'm running, like, it all sounds great. And if you run like the theoretical numbers, it looks really good. If you run the line of sight numbers, you launch a drone up 400 feet, you can get 20 miles, right? FAA limit is 400 feet. I'm not officially going to go over that. That is the FAA limit.
Well, you said 1,200 is the FAA?
Sorry, 400.
400 is the FFA limit. Okay.
Yeah, FAA. So, but the further up you go, the more range you can get. And these drones are amazing, man. They can go really high. I mean, the drone technology is just off the rails, you know. Not to get into the DJI drone ban, but you know, if you want a drone, now's the time to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Meshtastic opens up possibilities that just were not a possibility before. So would you be able to buy a $600 drone and launch an FM radio repeater on it? I mean, probably no. I mean, you might be able to get one of those $2,000 drones that can handle like a big payload, right? You know, like a really heavy payload, and run an FM repeater or like an AM repeater. I don't want to spend $2,000. It's also a lot of engineering. So again, this little, like, you know, my drone repeater is going to be just a little chip. I'm going to like Velcro onto the drone. It's going to be real simple. And the battery is going to be like this big, and it's going to last for hours, you know. And I'm going to administer the drone using the same app. Very easy to do. So This is my plan for communication is actually the drone. I'm going to go all in on the drone plan because the network is too flaky. So there's a lot that we could have talked about for like gotchas and stuff for people to know. In the time that we have left, just know the Meshtastic network is extraordinarily flaky. If you're trying to use it in preparedness, don't rely on the network. You have to create your own network. Just assume that no other nodes are going to exist because they may not, and the messages may not get through. I ran tests trying to figure out how far I can get my messages. The tests are pretty depressing. I'm in an urban area. It's all about antenna height. That's what it's all about. It's just sad. Like when you try to go through brick buildings, you can go a couple blocks and that's it. The furthest communication that people have achieved between two Meshtastic nodes has been 400 miles. That's the record. So that's how far they can go unobstructed. And FM can't go that far. FM loses signal. FM is great for like high quality, but then it diminishes with range. You can probably do AM and stuff, but again, it's just a lot of tinkering. You probably need a really heavy node. All these things might be possible without Meshtastic, but the doors really open up with Meshtastic. And so I'm personally going to go all in on the drone. And so my protocol is going to be in a cell tower down scenario. I need to go out and need to contact my family. I'm going to tell them, wait for the drone to go up. Keep your phones on you in airplane mode with Bluetooth on, and your phone might light up, right? And that's when I've got the drone in the air. And when your phone lights up, we've got a line of communication that's going to be open for like 30 minutes. And then we can talk.
And that's because the drone battery is only going to last X amount.
Right. But you can get multiple batteries. I've got 3 batteries. I could just hot swap them back and forth. I mean,
right.
This is amazing stuff. And then, so the problem though is that I think the theoretical range I can get on the drone is like 30 miles. But the practical range might be lower after I do my tests. I may only get 5. I don't know. But as you were saying, Dom, you can launch 2 drones in the air, but this requires coordinating like, hey, we're both going to launch our drones at this time. And when you launch 2 antennas at 400 feet, man, you're going to get some good range. You're going to get range like you would not imagine. You can go arbitrarily far. So lots of possibilities open up. And I really think in the prepper community, people should be looking at the drones as kind of the way to do this.
Yeah. And I think, because I've thought about, well, the battery will only last anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes, depending on what size battery, how much maneuvering. Because when I'm talking about this, it's like you're just going straight up into hover mode. You start maneuvering around, you're going to drain the battery. Plus, now you're just going to put a little bit of weight. But anytime you add anything to the drone, whether it's built for that or not, it's going to require more power to maintain altitude and drain the battery faster. So you can do, 2 drones on each end. So to help you stagger your hot swapping for the batteries. So drone 1 goes up at 10:05 and just say you're going to get 30 minutes on it. Then at 10:25, number 2 goes up. The other one comes down, and the same thing can be repeated at whatever, target locations you're going to do, because it doesn't take long to change the battery out. But then it's like, well, how many batteries am I going to need? Well, I don't know how long it takes to charge a battery. And this is assuming that you have a bigger battery bank, like an EcoFlow or something, that you're recharging these batteries. So you're going to make more investment to try to get more time. But you don't need to have the drone up 24/7. You just need it for your windows. Plus, you don't want to have to just have one drone. You want to have redundancy. 1 is none, 2 is 1, right? That's the old adage.
I got to tell that to my wife when I tell her I'm going to buy a second drone.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
I only
and
have
the
one.
thing about a drone,
I'm underprepared.
yeah, I don't really follow the drone, like how fast they're evolving things on the consumer end. But with all the research and trial and error they're doing in with drones in Ukraine, I'm wondering how much of that evolution is going to make its way to the consumer end and how fast.
Yeah.
And because I don't know how big the drones are that they're using to carry, grenades or whatever to drop on tanks and people and stuff. I don't know what the weight requirement is for that. I'm sure there's a ratio, for whatever amount of weight you want to carry, you need to have, X amount bigger drone. How are drones rated by size? Are they are
Grams.
they weighted? Huh?
Grams.
Yeah, but I mean, like sustainability. So it's like if you have, I don't know, a 50-gram drone, is there a ratio that compares? Okay, it can carry 5 pounds. If you go to 100-gram drone, it can carry 10 pounds. Is there
That's a good
kind of
point.
ratios like that?
Yeah, I would assume probably based on the prop size, the battery size, the weight of the drone already, and stuff like that. I've done a lot of looking into the whole Ukrainian drone thing because of this. Okay, I can't hold it in anymore, guys. I gotta go. Nate hit the nail on the head 4 times. That's why I love this guy already. That's exactly my plan, 100%. And that's kind of part of the whole pace plan we were talking about earlier, right? So 2 drone, especially here in Florida, we're very blessed that we're very flat, except we're not. I've come to find out. I thought when I stuck my repeater up 30 feet in the air that I was gonna be able to talk to everybody in Florida. Like, we're good to go, boys. Mesh is up. We're good to get. So apparently, that's not so. Actually, my brother Bender got me onto lidar data. It turns out, in between me and someone else in our group, and then to him, there's like 200 feet in elevation. I'm like, in Florida,
Yeah.
man.
There's
no way.
Well, the more central in Florida you are, from like the Orlando area up, there's a lot of elevation. And on the coastal side, on our side, you go to Brooksville, in Hernando County and Citrus, elevation is there too. So we're kind of like in a pocket.
It is.
Over in Western Florida.
It is, and it was quite eye opening at first, and so I think Nate's plan is absolutely was exactly what I was thinking. Is you have a plan. Let's just throw some numbers out there. 3 days after, no power, no grid, no communications, on the 10th hour at 10 a.m. drones go up on both ends with one of these taped to it, and send your messages. And I guarantee you, with both drones up, you'll hit 30 to 60 miles, probably no issue, assuming weather and all that fun jazz, right?
Probably 100.
Or even more. Exactly. One of the things that fascinated me, especially with the Ukrainian situation, is if you guys ever just watch. I try not to watch any more of the videos. It's just a waste of life. But have you ever wondered, like, man, those drones, dude, they are just hauling miles and miles and miles and miles away, hitting these tanks and these people. I mean, miles away. There's no drone, even with DJI, the best DJI Maverick you can get is not doing that type of range. So I started doing some research, and Dom, I actually posted one of those videos in our chat, kind of from a dude on the front lines who became a drone maker, CivDiv. I'm sure many people have heard of him.
Yep.
And they're not using the DJI Mavericks to go blow up tanks and personnel in the field. The DJI Mavericks are like a Meshtastic node in the air. They are relaying drone signals to the smaller drones to get those ranges. Why? Because antenna height is might, right? So no obstructions, You have the DJI Maverick 400 feet in the air that's relaying the signal to the smaller drones that the operators on the ground can actually use those drones to maneuver that far away. And so the guys out on the floor, the drone operators, to even control the Maverick, they have, I know you guys have seen them, the big Yagi antennas, the ones that kind of look like the old TV reception antennas. They're sitting there on the ground pointing these things to the DJI Maverick to control it, while controlling the other drones through it. So it's like droneception kind of deal. So yeah, to go back to what Nate was, I mean, Nate hit the that's exactly what we're going to do, because it seems to be the most reliable method, and drones are so cheap now that as long as you have a decent plan and you're coordinated and practiced ahead of time, not just the day of, oh crap, you've practiced this, getting the drones up in the air and communicating, there should be no reason why you guys can't get, like Nate was saying, at least 100-mile communication. And again, it's not, hey, how's the weather down there 3 days with the grid being down? You know what I'm saying? It's hey man, grid's down 3 days, no enemy so far, or hey, I'm coming to your place, or hey, we're moving out, or hey, let's set up the next scheduled point for after the batteries are recharged, just to kind of check in on each other on intervals, make sure everything's okay. It is not for lollygagging and chatting and checking the weather, if you will.
Well, Brendan posted, he says, I believe I read somewhere there is a 3-to-1 for drones. So a 3-pound drone can sustain 1 pound. So the DJI, because it's in grams, how many grams are in a pound? I'm trying to equate it.
That's a great question.
Are the drones even 2 pounds, if that?
About 500 grams in a pound.
Oh. And how big is your drone, Nate?
I have the DJI Mini. It's about that big, size of your the 2 hands. It's 249 grams, and that's because when you're over 250 grams, you technically have to register your drone with the FCC in order to fly it. It's also just cheaper to get the smaller ones.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, my repeater, my Meshtastic repeater, I plan for it to be under 50 grams. I think I can get it to 40. It's just incredible,
Yeah.
Can't do this with any other radio tech.
Yeah. And just to reiterate, putting something like this onto the drone, you will probably only get like 10 minutes. Like mine's an Atom SC, it's 250 grams, just like Nate was saying, and with that strapped to it, with really, like painter's tape or something, you're getting about 10 minutes. But man, from takeoff, joystick up, that thing goes flying up in the air. As soon as you get to that, 10 minutes is a pretty dang good window, all things considered.
Yeah.
As long as you practiced it out.
Oh man, I'm hoping I get more than 10 minutes. I was hoping. Yeah, I mean, this is why it's all about practice, right? Because I think the big takeaway I'd like to give people is that Meshtastic opens so many doors, but you gotta tinker with it. You gotta figure it out. But that's one of them. I got to figure out what this runtime is, because now they're concerning me. I don't. Maybe I'll only get 10 minutes. I was hoping for 25.
Yeah. Well, all right. So say you took 2 of the, since there's that cap there, and so we're working a problem here. So what if you take 2 of those 249 gram drones, and how close can they be without? I mean, are they pretty accurate? So if you set one here and one here, and they go straight up, I mean, are they going to lean and crash into each other? I mean, I don't know how accurate they are.
DJI, they have hovering, they have auto hovering. So they use GPS and some sensors to make sure that it stays stationary in the air. Because naturally it would just deviate from its position. But yeah, it's worth noting that these drones heavily rely on GPS, and if GPS is down, these drones are not going to work properly. So there's that.
The flaw in your theory.
Yeah, well, I'm still trying to figure out how. I think the GPS is going to be the last thing to go. because it's so important. The government will put in extraordinary amounts of effort to make sure GPS is working because it's so critical. So, unless an asteroid hits the Earth, I'm going to go ahead and assume GPS will be up.
Well, there's so much, because I know the military has their own GPS satellites, but there's so much of the non-military government apparatus that will utilize the regular GPS to go.
Yeah.
If we're gonna go into prepper fiction mode, they'll just turn it off, man. Well, then
Yeah.
DHS and everything
so.
else isn't gonna work either.
Right. Yeah, I don't think so. The amount of damage done across the country turning it off, it's just not viable. I have to be right back.
Yeah.
There are some drones as well, Dom, that will let you override that. So like my drone will let you. It'll warn you, hey, no GPSs. You might not get this damn thing back. I don't care if there are no GPS satellites. I can manual mode and just send it right up. As long as it's going up, even if it deviates a little, I can still see it. And then just
so that's good.
back down. Yeah.
Well, my other theory was, what if you tandem the drones, like you tether them together, with some paracord, all purpose, and to hold the node.
Cool.
So you can go with a heavier node,
I could see that working. I could also see that being carnage, but
yeah. Well, I'm wondering, in all seriousness, so obviously paracord wouldn't be good because there's no stability, but if you took a solid light rod, even like a wood, like a rounded wood sticks, really skinny, like a chopstick almost, that thickness, maybe a little bit longer, and you duct tape them to the bottom, or somehow make it so that stick would stay on the drone and hold the weight of the node. So duct tape might not work, but and then you're distributing the weight between the two two drones.
Yeah.
So it's an easier lift and extend your battery life. So it's just, but if it's windy out, you're probably screwed.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if one gets caught in a crosswind, it's dragging the other one with it. Yeah. Or if the other one dies, and I have never flown a drone, so I don't know what it's automatic. Like, hey, the wind is adjusting, or something makes it so it automatically returns to home, but the other one doesn't trigger for whatever reason. Like a bird flies by, and I don't know what the sensors do.
Yeah.
Then it's going to drag the other one down, and then just spin it over.
Yeah.
That's why you do 4 of them, man. It's a super quadcopter.
Exactly. Exactly. Make it a whole base station.
You got like $1,200 invested in drones and batteries, all to come crashing down after the first test flight. I should have never listened to Dom.
I love it. I'm kind of curious now, man. I'm shoot.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see.
Well, Brendan said that ag drones can get up to 15 to 20 pounds.
Yeah, I've seen those things. Those are the scariest. Those are the scariest drones I think I've ever seen.
So what do the ag drones normally do? Since we're waiting on Nate, anyways.
I've seen them. I've seen them spray cornfields. They will run around with tanks on them and spray cornfields with whatever the hell they're spraying those cornfields with. But dude, those, you want to talk about, the gamer in me was just like, how long before they strap 50 cows to those things? I mean, so it's not far off because they're already strapping bombs to them. But yeah, those things are scary, man. And you want to talk about some power? They push corn.
Well, you want to talk about predictive programming and stuff. There's a show that went 3 seasons called Colony. And it had the guy that played Sawyer in Lost.
Oh,
he's the main character, and the lady that played. You ever watched The Walking Dead? Okay, so Rick Grimes' wife in the first 2 seasons.
Shoot, yeah.
So her and the Sawyer guy, they're married in this show, and it just kind of, fits right in the prepper space because there's like a deep state and they were in cahoots with the aliens and, they're running things after the aliens invade but drones were like a big thing. And so we're just talking drones and fiction shows and stuff like that.
Yeah, I caught wind of some of the end there where, you guys were bringing up like the wind and rain and this is one of those cases where like, where does the theory or where does the practice meet the theory, right? Because in theory, it sounds so awesome. Because my dream for years has been to use my radio knowledge to establish reliable regional communication, consistent regional communication. Because with every other radio tech, you just can't achieve that. Because like with the ham radio tech, where like it relies on the radio waves bouncing off the atmosphere and stuff. That's flaky, right? It's not reliable. I mean, it's awesome, but it's not reliable. It also requires lots of heavy equipment. It's not really mobile. I mean, it can be, but GMRS and UHF, VHF, that's all line of sight. Once it starts going through trees and buildings, the signal's dead. Or you can get an antenna super high up, but I can't get an antenna 100 feet up. I'm a renter, Yeah. Even if you have a house and you have HOAs and stuff. So it's been like a dream for me for a long time to figure this out. And then as soon as I learned about Meshtastic, the gear started turning.
Yeah.
So, we'll all find out soon because it looks like Derek's on the same page and he's going to probably run some experiments too.
Yeah.
And at some point, you'll either find out that this idea was super awesome and the drone thing works, or it just doesn't actually work that well.
I'll tell you what kind of threw me on it, Nate, was I was sitting in my room one day. Me and my wife were playing a video game, and my little M1 started beeping. And mind you, I had no nodes, none by me. I received a message. What's going on? Hopped on there, and I have gotten nodes from hundreds. I've messaged people hundreds of miles away. In fact, I got one today, as a matter of fact, just so that today. From some guy on a plane 10,000 feet up with a Heltec V4.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten. It seems like when they and think about that. Some dude is on an airplane inside of an aluminum Airbus, flying 40,000 feet in the air with a small device, and he was able to connect. I want you guys to see my map because it is redonkulous. No OPSEC here. Well, look at that.
Yeah.
That's what they did. Three flights connected my map and all the mesh networks got together. There should be no reason why I can't make 100-mile contact with two drones, 400 feet in the air. I've chatted with people I would never otherwise chat with. It's insane.
Well, what frequency or band is the drone using? Because your controller is using radio line of sight to talk to the drone. Because I'm wondering, it seemed like the easiest thing would be is that the drone makers can just build a slot for an add-on card. Doesn't have to be very big. And if they're in different bands, then they probably shouldn't interfere. So why can't you just piggyback on your controller being a node and then having a node embedded in your drone or as an add-on card? So if they're on different bands, different frequencies, they shouldn't interfere with each other, right?
Nate would probably answer this better, but from what I understand, it's data limitation, right?
And
do you mean if the radio controller using to talk to the drone would or would not interfere with the Meshtastic communications?
Yes.
There'll be no interference. I'll have to look up what the frequencies are. But there'll definitely be no interference.
Yeah.
I don't fully understand just the physics of how antennas work. But it's incredible the ability to isolate a signal on a particular frequency while emitting the signals on other frequencies. It's just astounding how that's a thing. Because I mean, if you look at the air now, I mean, no, that you can't see, but I mean, like this little antenna is able to isolate a signal on a particular frequency, and there's just countless other radio waves going around. But yeah, I think that would not be an issue at all.
Are you guys? So I guess my last thoughts would be, and I'll give you guys the opportunity to say your last things. I reached out to a bunch of the Facebook groups that are kind of local, that are amateur radio or Meshtastic, that I saw that were available, and I posted a call out to say, hey, looking to see what you guys' stories are for your journey with this. We've talked about it in my podcast, yada yada, and a couple of the radio guys that have helped out with radio events before. Some of them were interested in Meshtastic, but they're just as knowledgeable as I am, and they were sharing all kinds of resources, invites to groups, links to different websites and stuff like that. Have you guys seeked out and found good resources, and what you can share with the audience and how they've helped you? And obviously those communities, if they're Meshtastic, they're probably going to be fairly friendly to beginners. There's always going to be some crotchety person, just like in the ham groups and stuff. But a lot of ham guys are pretty friendly for the most part, at least online, So what kind of resources would you guys direct towards people, or what's your experience been with that? Is the juice worth the squeeze, so to speak? Nate?
I'll do it. Yeah, I have not reached out to any communities. I'm in read-only mode for the subreddits for Meshcore and Meshtastic. But yeah, I probably should. I haven't looked at any of the communities. I joined the local Discord, and I asked some troubleshooting questions there. There's probably a Discord for every major area, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably a good place to start. But other than that, I've got the problem of being a me, myself, and I guy with my projects and stuff. So all right, I'll hand to Derek.
Yeah. Well, you're one of those guys that, and not to cut you off, Derek, it's just
no, not at all.
You can self-direct and self-teach, and you dig it.
Oh, and I dug really deep. I spent an unholy amount of time, 2 days, just deep diving. I was reading I was going through the actual packets and what the headers are that are sent. I was going so deep. And I would say use ChatGPT or Gemini as a resource. This thing of it just hallucinates nonstop is 2022 advice. It's for learn what it can and can't do, right? But for a lot of things, it can really help get you going in the right direction and to answer questions right away. It doesn't know everything, can be wrong, lots of caveats, but it can get you in the right direction on a lot of things very quickly, especially when you're new. And the alternative is spending a lot of time Googling, researching, which is fine, or bugging people. I spend a lot of time using AI to help get me going. And there's some good videos out there too.
Cool. All right, Derek, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, so as far as resources go, I agree with what Nate said. Reddit can be a very good resource, can also be a very toxic resource. But I joined the Florida Mesh Discord, and those guys have been pretty cool. But in fact, what kind of got me on it was I was conversating with that guy on the airplane, and he was from North Carolina Mesh, and he had mentioned that there was a Discord there, and sure enough, went looking, and there's a huge Florida one. as well. So that's definitely a really good resource. Trying to do any of the meetups, right? Any that they have a lot of meetups. Meet up with these guys. Like we were talking about before. Um, the people that are in the Meshtastic are a little different sometimes, insofar as like the gatekeeping, like we were talking about before. So
Mm-hmm.
I think they're, in my experience, have been way more apt to help people than than other groups. But yeah, I would start with that. But important to know the limitations of, like Nate was saying, important to know the limitations of this, but also, there's no reason why you can't just buy yourself a small node and start in your community first. That's how this mesh grows, and it's
Yep.
cheap enough and easy enough to get into. That should be something you should do. My repeater single-handedly handles 2 communities by me. I've been able to hit it that far. Um, so as far as a disaster response / storm response goes, I'm able to talk to all of my neighbors if they have a node. And so I would suggest getting with your community, which you should be doing anyway, on their Facebook page, which most communities do have a Facebook page. Just say, hey, I put up an emergency communications device. Here's a website to buy. Insert whatever,
Yep.
Meshtastic node. If you need help, I'll help you configure it, but this is how we communicate. If there's no power, if there's no grid, if there's no, Verizon outage, anybody, you know what I mean? So, start there, and then before you know it, everyone has these devices, and it makes the system designed and do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. All right.
Pretty
Awesome. Well, people, don't be afraid of the resources and take this opportunity to not only get into this interest space, this hobby of Meshtastic or amateur radio or whatever, and use it to meet people. What better way to connect with people than, sharing hobbies that you're both interested in? And you can meet up, grab some lunch, talk shop, show some of your toys. You bring them out, open up the tailgate. That's what I used to do with the radio and the solar stuff. And you chill in the parking lot. And everybody's safe and it's fun. And then you move on. If you want to still continue chatting with that person, you guys exchange some info. So it's a great way to do it. You hear so many times in the preparedness space that, I wish I could meet people and connect. And one more of many, opportunities, whether it's this radio stuff, Meshtastic, solar, the list goes on and on. Make the effort. And, it's simple as Facebook. They have them on Telegram. I'd be a little, careful on Telegram. I don't go look for interest groups on Telegram, but I know that stuff's available. Go to Discords and subreddits and all that jazz. So thank you, everybody, for joining episode 25. This was a lot of fun. It was great to hang out with Nate again and Derek. You guys did an excellent job. I learned even more information being on this podcast than I did watching the YouTube videos. So appreciate it. And we'll have a solar episode coming up soon. We'll try to get Nate and Derek back on, okay, and get their input. But until then, everyone, have a great rest of your weekend. And hey, share the video with people. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And look forward to you next time. All right. Good night, everybody.